Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned into episode number 571 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And this is our short topics episode, so we welcome you in. And before we get to our short topics for the evening, we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. For the on assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so I guess we should probably just jump right into it. I mean, I've had a busy weekend, and you've had a busy weekend, and I'm tired. And on the scale of Linux in the Ham Shack episodes, I'm pretty sure this one's going to be right near the bottom. So we'll just say that right up front. But at least it will be informational. There will be stuff that you probably want to know about or hear about or maybe even look forward to or something like that. But we'll do our best to sound like we're interested or something. I'll let Bill try and carry that torch for the first of our amateur radio topics for tonight.
Yeah, we got some really hot off the press news here this morning. The clusters were hacked, from a blog post by VE9KK titled "Seems clusters have been possibly hacked." I quote, "One of my morning routines is to check on the clusters to see what's happening. I check DXHeat, DXSummit, and Holy Cluster." I've never even heard of Holy Cluster, but that sounds pretty cool. I'll have to check that out. This morning, I noticed the same station was being spotted over and over nonstop. Holy Cluster was not as bad as the other two, but it still had issues with the continued repeated spots. I noticed on Holy Cluster the same station is being spotted on SSB, CW, and Digi all at the same time. A sure sign of a hack, I believe. I'm not sure how long this has been going on, as I just checked this morning. And he provided some screenshots, so that's end quote for the article. And it showed Oscar Echo 8 Delta Delta X-ray being respotted all over the place by randomly sequenced call signs. So like someone would use the letters of the call sign and then just replace the numbers with 1 through 0 and just, spot 10 spots at a time. Bloom, 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 bloom. And basically spamming. So obviously somebody had an unprotected way of, or non-flood protected way of posting spots, whether that be from a web UI or something. I did go on later this afternoon and checked before the podcast, and I don't see that happening anymore. So whatever hole in the process that was exposed is perhaps closed now. But if you happen to be messing around on the clusters the morning of that we recorded this podcast, you may have seen that too. So we'll probably get some kind of after action report from the cluster people, maybe, or wherever it came from. We shall see. And that came from his blog too. So the VE9KK blog.
Victor Echo 9 Kilo. So yes, excellent. I can talk for probably 20 seconds on Holy Cluster, like in the Linux in the Ham Shack segment, because I just looked at it and now I know things.
Cool. We got a new topic.
Right, first time I've seen it, but I can expound on it for like 30 seconds.
Sweet.
All right, next in our amateur radio topics, we have a grant will help young amateur operators become contesters. Do we want this? Do we want contesting? Yeah. Well, I mean, what is it? It's MCOM Ragshire contest, right? That's all there is. So a $2,000 grant to the University of Scranton from the Frankfurt Radio Club, FERC, in Pennsylvania will support the development of a contest dashboard that will leverage the popularity of amateur radio contest to benefit science, technology, students, and ham radio science citizen investigation, ham-sci, community members. Through the grant, a team of university students, faculty, and FERC members along ham-sci community, with, I assume that's supposed to be, ham-sci community members will collaborate to develop a real-time contesting/DXing dashboard for the ham-sci personal space weather station. You remember what she did for this one last time? So, the puss wuss.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Apologies in post and advanced.
It could be worse. Could be like piss whiz.
Piss whiz. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The PSWS, seriously, is a modular ground-based system that measures space weather impacts on the Earth's ionosphere. The grant will fund Scranton University student researcher Owen Ruzansky, KD3ALD, a first-year computer engineering major, for the summer and fall 2025 semesters to help develop the contest dashboard, and is expected to conclude in the spring semester of 2026. And that came from our favorite organization, which Bill is about to expound on here, the ARRL. So,
ARRL.
the ARRL. Yeah.
I pulled in this story anyway, just because it was they had a picture attached to the article. So definitely go check out the article and look at the shot of their ham shack location. They're risen above of the town, and they're surrounded by glass, windows, and have just a lovely view while they're working their ham radio stations there. So that's I thought that was really cool. Like, I wish I went to a college that had a ham radio station like that.
Yeah, the colleges I went to barely had buildings that tall. I mean, couldn't have nice, 180-degree views of surrounding Scranton. And if you've ever driven through Scranton, which I have many, many times, it's actually quite lovely. Lots of hills and valleys out there.
Okay, so this next story.
I know, apropos of nothing. Yeah, moving on.
This next story, there's a little bit of, humor to it, but you'll figure it out. So the ARRL Ministry of Truth has been created. At the ARRL annual board meeting, there were a lot of interesting items that the directors had rubber stamped, according to the minutes that were released on the interwebs, which we have linked in the show notes. There's a nice full PDF of the meeting. There was a bit of refining of the language around elections that were brought into concern this last director elections, where at least one candidate was removed after the ballots went out, and then a winner was ordained by the Ethics and Elections Committee. And an update, and I spelled probably that wrong too. In an updated campaigning section of the director and vice director elections, we have this additional power of truthiness control being given to the group. And it reads in part 3, all statements made by the candidate during the campaign period must be, in all material respects, truthful and not misleading. The standard of truth applies to all campaign material by a candidate. Campaign statements may include opinions stated as such. However, an expressed opinion based on false or misleading statements shall be deemed to be untrue. The E&E Committee shall be responsible for reviewing and determining whether statements are false or misleading. And that's the end of that section. Seems as if solidifying the election power and control of which candidates get into the elections and perhaps get elected by a small group of people instead of the members. Is this sending the right message to a dwindling membership that have already lost trust in the ARRL? That's the question I pose. Yeah. All the directors, I think, voted for this. I'd have to look at the record, but there was not a whole lot of nays throughout the day. So I think the group took a lot of flack this last time because of the way they handled certain aspects of the elections. And I think this change just is probably not congruent with what the people, the membership, were feeling when we were told which director is ours in our division out here, because it was the division I'm a member of. So anyway, We linked the source to the minutes. You can read through it. There's a lot of stuff in there, including their budget approvals and stuff like that. Status of their bank accounts or investments and stuff like that. So kind of an interesting read of the business that they go through. And, me serving on boards, I'm quite familiar with the things you have to go through, which are kind of boring in most cases. But I found this part to be a little bit interesting of some of the rewrites that they're doing to support their decision-making processes in the last election.
Yeah, and I like how they've managed to put a assessing body into play. Yeah. We'll see how effective subsection 3 is, I guess. And to be quite honest, I have no idea who the director of my section is. I have never in my life known, and I still don't. So
yeah, we shall see.
I assume there is a director of this section, but
there should be. Hopefully, they send you an email if you're a member. Gosh,
I'm not a member. Mine lapsed like last year. So yeah.
Well, I'm a life member, but maybe I'll get like my life membership revoked because I'm making a comment of questioning their reasoning behind this stuff. But I probably would never be able to get elected to a directorship anyway, because, part of the other thing is that you can't say anything disparaging or, question. They redefine like some of the code of conduct as well, which is also listed in there. I didn't go into that, but that seems also sort of, it's like having also like a non-disparagement agreement and stuff like that in place, which in some cases makes sense. But, as a director, if you really want to invoke change, I think sometimes you need to have a little bit more free will with the way you represent yourself. And it can't always be in the best interest of the organization, or can't always be in agreement or alignment with every decision that is edicted by some committee within the organization. You almost wonder if that means that they can't vote no on stuff that the executive director or somebody says, no, we're doing this. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird that they're adding some additional verbiage around their code of conduct and their ethics stuff. Seems like there's other issues going on there that they want to bury the lead on.
Yeah, possibly. It's probably just a reaction to the fact that they were called out on this in some cases, or there was an issue, around it, and so they felt like they had to respond in some way, and this is the method of their response. So.
Yeah, they're just patting themselves on their back. We did the right thing. We're just going to codify it now in our bylaws. So.
Okay. Yep. You just made sure you'll never be part of the ARRL.
Jesus.
All right. Well, moving on to something slightly less controversial and also an entirely different group category, open source. Let's talk a little bit about the GIMP, GNU Image Manipulation Project. Probably.
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Fill in your own pee. 3.0 release candidate 3 has been released. The GIMP team has released the third release candidate for GIMP 3.0, which is intended for final community testing before the stable version. This release includes several important bug fixes and changes, like just in time for GIMP 3.0, JitGimp, a new version of GTK 3.24.48 has been released. Version numbers just like out of control anymore.
Yes, they are.
Which it includes fixes for several bugs affecting GIMP, such as a crash in Wayland. Oh, sad. A crash in Wayland.
Yeah, imagine. GTK fighting with Wayland.
Yeah, I know. Who knew? When dragging layer groups, and I guess I'm never going to be on the Wayland board.
You're done.
Glitches.
You're canceled.
Exactly. Thank you. In certain widgets, then the system language reads right to left. I assume that's 23 is Stray. Non-destructive editing enhancements. The way filters work has been significantly improved. Instead of converting filter output to and from the original image's bit depth when stacked, it now only converts when the filter is meant to be merged in. I'm sure somebody who does a lot of image editing will know exactly what that means. This change is designed to enhance the non-destructive editing workflow. There's also a new PDB call. A new GIMP drawable merge filter PDB call has been introduced, allowing script foo writers to use labels to specify filter properties. Additionally, a new named argument syntax inspired by the racket scheme variant has been added. Wow, lots of stuff I don't know anything about. Stability and performance improvements. Oh, stability and performance improvements. I know what that is.
Yeah.
This release addresses crash and stability issues, particularly when working on Wayland. It also includes dozens of bug fixes, requests, and translation updates. Users are encouraged to test this release candidate and report any regressions or other issues to ensure a smooth and stable final release. And this came directly from the GIMP's mouth. So,
well, it's an AI summary of the GIMP's mouth. Those numbers were like footnotes to the the AI summarization. I was like trying to figure out. It's a pretty long release document that we linked to here, and I was trying to summarize it in a way that it was like, okay, I'll use AI. I'll bite.
I should have known with some of that wording in there, but
whatever. Yeah. It wasn't horrible, so I was like, okay, well, I'll just leave it as is. It's fine. Sorry.
I think we got the point across. There's a new GIMP. Try it.
Yeah, it's a new GIMP. Try it. Yeah, I could have just said that too. That would be. It wouldn't have taken as long, right? We need to, some content here that sounds like we took a little bit of effort, But anyway.
Right. All right.
The next one you have to read is also done that way too, but I'll tell you something funny about that one when we get to it. But
okay.
The next story here is passing the torch on Asahi Linux. This is from the Asahi Group main page, news page, blog post, whatever. So this is from their perspective. And they say, with a heavy heart, we announced the resignation of Asahi Linux founder Hector Martin, known as Marcan. His statement is on his blog. Asahi Linux brings Linux to Apple Silicon, supporting audio, webcams, graphics acceleration, and more. As the remaining developers, we are taking this as an opportunity to build a sustainable project governance. No matter how talented an individual, a large project cannot rest on a single person's shoulders. So instead of one replacement, we have 7. Alicia Rosenzweig, probably, is a graphics developer. Chaos Princess as kernel developer. David Kavalka as a Fedora developer. Neil Gompa, Fedora developer. James Calagueros or Caballeros? I don't know. Audio dev. We're going to butcher all your names. Jane Grunau is a kernel dev, and Sven Peter is a kernel dev. When it comes to project decision-making, we will share equal power in accordance with our new governance. Nobody's contributions last forever. These governance changes will allow the project to persist as developers come and go. Asahi Linux relies primarily on volunteer contributors. Although some contributors have individual Patreon or GitHub sponsors accounts, individual funding streams cannot sustain a team. Going forward, our new fiscal sponsor, Open Source Collective, will instead facilitate donations to the project as a whole. And there's much more to read about it on the Asahi Linux site. Most of you, if you're familiar with this story, started out as Hector was sent basically I quit the kernel dev team. And then he from the Asahi perspective, and then he quit this. So it's not great, but maybe this is a good move in general for the Asahi project, so you can run, Fedora on Apple Silicon and perhaps other Linux systems, with all the changes that need to get into the kernel mainline to support the Apple and the Apple Silicon builds. But yeah, that came to us, again, directly from the Asahi website.
All right, very good. I tried Asahi on one of my Apple Silicon devices, and it almost forked it, shall we say.
What the fork?
Exactly. So I don't do that anymore. And the old IBM stuff, or not IBM stuff, the old Intel stuff, just runs. You can run Yellow Dog and sometimes even other things if you can mess around with the bootloader. So
yeah,
you don't have to go to Asahi, but that's really for Apple Silicon, not for the old Intel stuff. Anyway, so Bill tells me this is rewritten or summarized by AI. So here we go. Fedora should not push its users to its own Flatpak repository. The article we're referencing here, link in the show notes, discusses Fedora's practice of maintaining its own Flatpak repo instead of using FlatHub, the default repo for most other distributions. Fedora's repository sometimes leads to issues such as bugs and broken applications, which can mislead users into believing the problems are with the original developers. For instance, the Open Broadcast Studio, OBS, project requested that Fedora either remove its unofficial Flatpak or clearly mark it as third-party. When Fedora ignored this request, OBS escalated the issue, demanding the removal of their branding from Fedora's distribution within 7 business days, threatening legal action if not complied with. Fedora maintains its own repository for several reasons, including adherence to its policy of only allowing free and open source software, which FlatHub does not strictly enforce. Additionally, Fedora's Flatpaks are built from its own RPM packages, use the OCI format, and rely on a single large runtime, whereas FlatHub uses OSTree and multiple smaller runtimes. The article argues that maintaining a separate Flatpak repository is wasteful and can cause issues for users and developers. It suggests that Fedora should default to FlatHub to reduce workload, prevent bugs, and improve the user and developer experience. And this came from OS News. So the obvious fix to this, right, is to change their open source policy and acquire FlatHub.
No, they should change their policy and not try to run the Snap store like Ubuntu does. And use FlatHub, which is sort of, independent of that. And it doesn't make any sense. You can actually we linked into the GitLab issue that was sent in that sort of started this whole discussion 3 weeks ago. And you can see that the package maintainer for the Flatpak that is on the Fedora repo for OBS responded back to the person that sent in the complaint, and they're going to be working on it this week to fix things. But since then, the package or the Flatpak has been flagged on the Software Center as possibly not reliable or something like that. I forget the specifics. It's labeled in there if you happen to go. Well, I could probably even look right now. Let's see what it comes up as right now. Anyway, when I had it summarize this article, it kept saying OBS was Open Build Service, not Open Broadcaster. I was like, how are you coming up with that? That is just silly. Yes. So when I go into the Fedora Linux Flatpak, it says potentially. I don't see any updated messaging on here. I thought they were going to change the messaging, but maybe that hasn't gone out because I actually run the RPM on my machine. But I do see like the drop down in the Software Center does show you the places you can install from. The very first one on a Fedora box is the Fedora Linux Flatpak registry, which is not a FlatHub Flatpak. So. There lies some other issues, and you can go through the actual GitLab complaint or issue and see everybody's opinions and thoughts and everything else on it. But it looks like the overall situation will be resolved, at least for OBS. The complaint was more general than just OBS. Just OBS was a particular example because OBS was receiving issues that were specific to the Flatpak that they don't provide. So that's kind of where it all sort of started from.
Yeah, you said there was something funny about this one. What was that?
Yeah, it thought OBS was Open Build Service. Oh,
the Open Build Service, right. Gotcha.
And I told it, I was like, no, you're wrong. OBS is Open Broadcaster Studio. And it's like, okay, I'll reword it. And then I reworded it and said the same thing, Open Build Service. And I'm like, you are so stupid. This AI is garbage. That's all I'm going to say. AI is crap.
Are you not using DeepSeek or?
I was using the one that's built into the Brave browser, so Leo.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know who they use for that. Obviously, they probably don't use themselves, but it generally is not bad. It's just this one time it came up with that. I was like, really? Did you really see that in the OS News article? I don't think you did.
Of course, you could just take this tree down at the trunk and just remove all Flatpak's app images and snaps, and we wouldn't have any of these problems. So
I don't know about that. Then we'd actually have to ensure that the RPMs are built for every single package, and then we'd have to worry about dependencies and keeping stuff up to date for builds. I mean, in theory, you could automate almost all of that stuff, but I don't think we're quite there yet to where we have full blown automation systems. So when we go to build Fedora 42, it just goes ahead and looks through every single RPM in the repo and fixes all of the dependencies and anything else that needs to change, or if there's something that it will not receive an update that will bring it out of sync, it should deprecate it out of the repo.
I've gotten to the point where I still kind of hate Flatpaks and stuff. But I think the biggest problem for me, well, there's two big problems for me. One is, which are probably not problems for other people, but the first is, of course, everything has to have its own dependencies, of course. So you can't you can't have anything linked to like existing system libraries. You have to build everything into your Flatpak, which of course makes it, bigger, sometimes huge, depending on what libraries you're based on. And the other thing is, if you have a document that's referencing how to like set up something or edit config files or things like that, a Flatpak sandboxes everything. So where you think something needs to go is not where it needs to go, because it needs to go in the same place underneath the Flatpak sandbox hierarchy, which can be hard to find. And, I understand the idea of sandboxing and keeping processes separate and stuff like that, but it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And I mean, to just circle back to the GIMP releases, they're focusing on Flatpak builds, Flatpak and app images. That's their primary mainline for release. So they probably won't maintain the RPMs or debs and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'll probably just have a git clone of the source and just do it that way.
Yeah. So here's what they say. App image. App image is now official. After 9 months of incubation, the number is a mere coincidence. We present a new distribution format for Linux users, blah, blah, blah. Initially, we were using it for testing. But like any package format. Yeah. So hopefully it doesn't mean they're going to discontinue providing debs and stuff like that. But I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to get something that is going to actually work.
No, I kind of get that.
And then especially if you're like missing something that they didn't really get in the dependencies list or something. There's always something weird sometimes that happens on some software. Preferably, I mean, not really with GIMP so much because it's, I think a pretty high use base and everything else. But yeah. Well, it does make it easy, especially on systems that are, what do you call it? Mutable systems. Because like you can't even put an RPM on, well, you technically can, but you need to rebuild the boot package so it stays in there all the time. It's a really weird experience putting into like Fedora's immutable system, because I'm still running that immutable version of Budgie Fedora for our sound system test computer at the theater. And I wanted to put an RPM in there, and it basically it works just like if you have a Docker file and you make a change to the Docker file, so it has to make a hashed version of that Docker file, so it knows like the state of that file. It does the same thing to your basically bootloaded kernel and everything else to support the fact that you added that RPM that's not in the main line of the actual immutable system.
Right, and I do tend to always forget that the immutable systems exist, and for those things where you can't have like dynamically linked libraries and stuff like that, app images and snaps are sort of the way to go. But yeah, on a regular system, no, screw that.
Yeah, if you don't have to, right? You don't have to.
Right.
It does add other kinds of issues, right? Because jail sandboxing and everything else.
So, further complicated, at least in my case, and I guess in your case too, that we're running Arch. So, in some instances, so that whether you use a deb or a Flatpak or whatever, can also be problematic. And like Manjaro doesn't necessarily support Flatpaks out of the box. You have to install the Flatpak architecture. Then you can do that. And then sometimes it doesn't matter because the Flatpaks are put in the AUR. So it can get all kinds of confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a topic for a show sometime, I guess. But anyway, yeah, that actually brought us Oh, what? You had something
Oh
else?
no, I was just going to add a feedback. I forgot I was going to add a feedback item. So, but you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do that while I talk for 10 seconds about that thing that I mentioned earlier, or actually that you mentioned earlier, Holy Cluster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say about it. If you've seen DX Heat, and that's another one that was mentioned, it's very similar to DX Heat. It's got a nice globe or list representation. It works well even on a mobile device, which is what I'm looking at it now. Like really easier to filter spots and things like that. Of course, uploading spots is easy as well. It's got dark mode. You can change the colors on it and everything. It's kind of like DX Heat, but with easier navigation, basically. It's much simplified. And I actually think if I'm going to go to a web-based cluster, I might go to this one now. It's really simple to use, and I actually kind of really like the way it looks on my phone here. I'm using an Apple phone with Safari, and it even renders properly on there, which is astounding.
That's a miracle.
So it must look incredible under, Chrome or something else. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that, because I have not done any investigation, but this probably bears further investigation. It's even got like a drop down at the top for like your timeouts, push buttons for band mode, nicely laid out, and the globe map showing the path traces is kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah, and you can change your center to be your own grid square and everything else. Yeah, I like how the mobile app allows you to flip back and forth between the map and the table. I have it up on the desktop right now as well, and you can have both obviously side by side because you have a bit more real estate in a desktop computer. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. I haven't heard of this one, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it until you mentioned it either, and it was really easy to look at. And I mean, you could literally learn how to use it in 20 seconds, which is what I did. So. All right, with that brings us down to the end of the show. Except we do have a couple of things to wrap up that we do every time we record. The first thing is announcements and feedback. We do have one bit of feedback that Bill's going to get to here in a second, but I'm going to do the announcement that we've been doing lately, which is if you can support the show, please help us out. We would appreciate it. If you can give us $2 or even less, depending on how you subscribe per month, that will really help out the show. You can do that on Patreon, PayPal, or by buying merch. Links to all of those things are on the website, lhspodcast.info. And we are like super dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I think if we get to 1,000 subscribers, within the next little while, I think we will renew our commitment to actually put up some content. So always good. And usually generates more subscribers. So,
yeah. Besides just the podcast, which isn't video content, and we realize that.
But there is some non podcast content out there, and we have both sort of casually committed to creating more. So hopefully more people will sign up to the YouTube channel, and if you do that before we create this new content, you'll be the first to see it. So with that, we'll hit Bill going to mention some feedback we got.
Yeah, I got a Discord DM from Russ, KC5CNT, and he said, "Hey, Bill, hope you're doing well. I just received a new to me iMac 4.1, circa 2006, and I don't want the old Mac OS, and I want to install Linux on it, and I'm not sure how to install it. Tried to find an old copy of Ubuntu since my 2022 LHS thumb drive failed. Any ideas? And do you know what perhaps is going to be the problem with this particular machine?"
I honestly think 4.1 might be too early to run anything like Ubuntu 2022. I think the only thing you might have success with on an iMac that old is with Yellow Dog.
Yeah. So this is an Intel Core 2 Duo unit, so it does have the ability to do 64-bit. However, the EFI loader on this particular series of Macs is only a 32-bit EFI loader. So that means you will not be able to boot into anything 64-bit with a Linux installer. So you'd have to install a 32-bit version of Linux. So you're on your own on that. It's a bit too old for that. It's probably time to keep it as a nostalgia piece.
Did Debian dump 32-bit?
I think everybody has. Well, no, Debian may still have one. Maybe they did. I don't know. I'd have to look, but you have to use a 32-bit thumb drive installer.
Yeah, which ours will definitely not be.
No, we gave that up a while ago. So
yeah, quite a while back. If you can find somebody who bought a really, really old one and still has it, we did have 32-bit ones, and I probably have a 32-bit version of something lying around here, but it's probably like Debian 7, which, I guess it would make the computer functional to a certain extent. But
yeah, I don't think it would be anything worth using.
Right. Yeah, I kind of feel that too. I mean, there
probably
is
be a good ham clock computer, maybe.
Oh yeah, you know what? It probably would. Because I mean, there's certainly 32-bit versions of that, and it's not resource intensive. So, yeah, if you wanted to use it for that, it would probably be great for that. Because I have an old iMac too, but I'm not using it for anything because it's stupid and heavy and it sits in a closet. So, all right. Well, anyway, good luck with that. And if you find something or do something successful with it, let us know. The ham clock thing. Try it. See if it works for you. Those old iMacs are just so huge and heavy. They're just, yeah. I remember back in the day when I first saw them, and I was like, oh, these all-in-one iMacs are so cool. And of course, and over time now, they're just junk. But so moving on, let's wrap up with our new subscribers, supporters, and live participants. And I'm going to cough here for a minute. Dang it. I had to scream all afternoon because, they pep you up on the video, on the live TV. They want everybody screaming and carrying on. So, yeah, I have no voice left.
Let's not make this sound like a sport you can play drinking a beer and smoking cigars.
Well, not smoking cigars anymore unless you got a private, alley somewhere. But anyway... Yeah, new subscribers, new supporters, and live participants. We didn't have any new subscribers or Patreons. We did have a free Patreon, Snoosake, who has actually been a listener of the show for a while, but apparently signed up on Patreon. On Facebook, we had Jenny Michael Favreau. On Twitter, nobody. On Instagram, nobody. On Mastodon, we had Inca_Rhodes, Tanguy_Jerome, which totally sounds like a fake account, but I looked at it, and it isn't. Sobs, and Wandering Ham. Nobody joined us on YouTube. On Discord, we had Wayne, W8JWF, RoboHack. We've been RoboHacked. And Nate, WY0X, and Jack_Ripkin. On Blue Sky, we had VE3ORE and Mummified Yeti Hand. I think we're in trouble. Nobody joined us on the mailing list, and we did not have any live chatters tonight. Everybody was exhausted from whatever they were doing over Valentine's Day weekend. And we will not speculate at this point. So with that, we have come down to the end of the show. Thank you for tuning into our Short Topics episode here at Linux in the Ham Shack. We really appreciate everybody who joins, who listens to the show, who participates on the social media, and, of course, to all of our subscribers. We appreciate each and every one of you. If it weren't for all of you, we wouldn't be doing any of this. So hope you have a great week, and we'll tune in for the Weekender next time around in episode 572, and we will hopefully catch you all then. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode number 571 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And for the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD 73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.